Mean Gene, the first thing you need to do is to tell these people to shut up if you want to hear what I gotta say.
Art 101 with Mr. Burgher.
Well, scholars, welcome back to another episode of Art 101.
Who's that?
Well, I'm Mr. Burgher. I'm a professional artist and master educator who's going to attempt to provide you with the best in art historical content. If you like it, why don't you follow along with me? Subscribe, all that kind of jazz.
Everything old sucks!
Anywho, today we're going to go ahead and jump on in and have a discussion about ancient Greek architecture. Without further ado, let's just go ahead and jump right on into it. Now, when it comes to architecture, temples are the absolute most important buildings in Greek society. There's some basic principles and elements that go into basically any temple-like structure. First off, we have the column, which consists of two parts, the shaft and the capital. The capital is the top of the shaft, giving us order or gender of the building. The term capital comes from the Latin word caput, meaning head. Greek and Roman architecture uses two basic orders or genders, Doric and Ionic. Doric is male and probably most popular, where Ionic is female. Side note, as these things would evolve, the Corinthian order was developed to establish a non-gender or as being omnigender.
What can I say? I'm a very sexual being.
Resting at the top of the capital is an architrave and a frieze, which is usually decorated. The roof is supported by the frieze. This triangular shelf created at the roof line and the frieze is called the pediment. A lot of times we'll see examples of sculptures being placed in these pediments that tell stories about the patron god of the temple or whatever. The Greeks were overly obsessed with numbers. Math was very much seen as a sacred gift from the gods. They discovered the importance of the Fibonacci numbers and the golden rectangle. This is used wherever there is harmony. The curvature of a bent finger, the keys on a piano, the creation of honeycomb, the baby in utero, and on and on. Basically, the golden rectangle is a 1 to 1.6 ratio that they really try to pack into a lot of the architectural and sculptural things that are created at this time. One of the most iconic structures of the time was definitely the Parthenon. The Parthenon was built in Athens at the top of the Acropolis. Acropolis meaning a hilltop fortress. Now, a lot of times I'll get students that confuse the Parthenon with the Acropolis. I don't really understand why, but for some reason that's a little confusing. But just remember that the Parthenon is the building and the Acropolis is the hill. There are lots of really interesting facts and features about the Parthenon, so let's get into a few of those. The chief builder of the project was Phidias, who was also responsible for creating the sculpture to Athena. We'll talk about that here in a moment, but the designers of the project were Iktinos and Kallikrotes. It was the idea of Periclides that after Athens held off Xerxes and the Persians, that the destroyed temples atop the Acropolis would be rebuilt. At the center of this work was the construction of the Parthenon. It was constructed with the illusion of visual perfection. The base was built at a bit of a curve. The elements were not interchangeable, although they looked like they could be, but no, they weren't. And mathematically, the building keeps with a 9:4 ratio throughout the entire structure, but also incorporates the golden ratio of a 1 to 1.6. That is considered to be the mathematical formula to aesthetics or visual beauty. The Parthenon is a two-cella chamber design structure, meaning that it has two solid walls inside of the colonnade that is largely constructed out of marble. Now, this particular marble was well known in ancient Greece for its high quality and beauty. But although beautiful, the marble would have been painted. That's right, the Greeks painted all of these things, their sculptures and their structures would have been painted with really bright, vibrant colors. As far as the functionality of this building goes, the primary purpose of the building was a place of worship for the goddess Athena, obviously the namesake of the city of Athens. In the main room, there would have been a 40-foot tall statue of her. It was likely made out of ivory and gold that would have been cut into strips and placed over a wooden armature. The second chamber would have been used as a treasury for the Delinean League. A first in this building, which is obviously unique, is that the design has Doric order columns with an Ionic frieze. Inside the structure, Ionic columns would have been used because Ionic is female and Athena is a female goddess, and, they match. The columns themselves were made to be stacked in smaller sections so that the blocks would fit perfectly together. The sections were made with a square notch placed perfectly in the center. In this notch, they would have placed a cedar wood block with a hole in the center. The top section would have been lowered with the wooden block that had a wooden peg coming down. After that peg was inserted into the hole, the blocks were perfectly on center and only minor adjustment was necessary. Another interesting note on those columns is that they tip in slightly, and that gives them the appearance of being more stable, and thus looking stronger as one would look up at them. Also, in this optical adjustment thing, the columns also swell in the middle so that they don't appear to sag. In its prime, the Parthenon was used for civic meetings, place of worship, an art gallery, a bank, and a library. And since then, it's been attacked, problems due to damaging restoration techniques in the early 1900s, partially exploded, set on fire, its artwork has been looted, air pollution, it has survived earthquakes, served as a church, and Spartan military barracks. Since 1975, the Parthenon has been getting quite a facelift by the Acropolis Restoration Project. This painstaking project works to preserve all of the original pieces of the structure. For example, it took 5 years to properly place and restore 500 pieces of marble section, keeping in mind that there are 70,000 in the whole structure. I love telling you that story. Thank you for letting me tell it. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it, and we will see you next time. Have a great day out there.
Hey, Old Man River, zip it or I'll break your hip.